more and more these days, people are focused that it is a business and it has to make money and it has to, feed a family.
Hello and welcome to the AgriFocus podcast. I'm Frances McDonnell and today I'm going to be chatting to Laurence Feeney, the Chief Executive of the Irish Holstein Friesian Association. Laurence, you're very welcome here to the AgriFocus podcast.
Thanks, Francis. Great to be here today.
And you're joining us just as preparations get underway for the AXA National Dairy Show, which kicks off this Friday, October the 13th at Green Glens Arena, Mill Street, County Cork. Agriland Media Group is the official media partner of the AXA National Dairy Show again this year. The show was first held by the Cork Holstein Friesian Breeders' Club in 1982. But tell us, Laurence, why 41 years later it's become such an important event for the IHFA?
Yeah, so, there is a long history there, and I suppose that's been slowly building up. Last year was the 40th anniversary, and it was kind of, quite a big deal to kind of pass 40 years. So the show itself is run by a committee from the Cork Holstein Friesian Club, right? And IHFA gets involved to help them out, even though we're not directly responsible for the show ourselves. It's, I suppose, at this time of year when we're kind of winding down and preparing for the winter, it's a great meeting place for the entire industry. And lots of Irish dairy farmers like to get down to Mill Street. It's a great venue and there's a good cattle show and lots of trade exhibitors that are all relevant to dairy farmers. Things like a machinery demonstration and other things like that are just kind of like nice, interesting, educational day, but also an entertaining day and a day to bring the family out because there's, it's good for the kids and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, and we see the best dairy breeders exhibit heifer calves, heifers and milk, and mature cows across the 2-day event, don't we?
Yeah, so day starts off on Friday afternoon, and Friday afternoon is the calf classes and also the calf handler classes. So like all the shows you might have seen during the summer, half the time they're judging who's the best calf, and the other half of the time they're judging who's the best at handling their calf. So who's the best person at preparing and exhibiting their animal to their best, right? So half the time it's the calf and half the time it's the people. At Friday evening, we have some of the calf classes, but we also have the national finals of what we call the Showmanship League, right? So it's all the calf exhibitors from the whole summer and all the shows. They have their final in Mill Street. So that's a big, big event for all the young people handling their calves. And then the Saturday then is some more of the calf classes plus the milk and stock classes as well, and culminating in the national champion in the afternoon. So, it is kind of like the pinnacle really of our national shows. It's the last national show of the year. A lot of the best cows that have been exhibited throughout the year will be out at it. Plus, there'll be some new ones that we haven't seen in the showing yet this year. So it's very exciting from that point of view.
And it is a major opportunity for breeders to come together to showcase their cattle. But there is huge competition, isn't it?
Oh, the inside the ring is hugely competitive. And I suppose it's a culmination of a couple of days hard work for the people that have cattle at the show. But it's also the culmination in most cases of kind of a lifetime of cattle breeding to breed one that's good enough to go to Mill Street Dairy Show in the first place. And then you have to put in all the hard work to show them off at their best. So it's really competitive, but it's also what's very interesting is when you get into the competitors, everybody helps everybody out too. So it's very collegiate in a lot of respects as well as been very competitive. And when the winner is tapped forward, there's handshakes all around and everyone's keen to congratulate them. So it's I think people recognize all the work that goes into it.
Yeah. So it'll be a very busy week then for some people.
Oh, there'll be cattle down there from tomorrow morning onwards, and there'll be people with them 24/7 looking after them and trying to get them just at absolute optimum condition when they walk into that show ring.
And tell me, Laurence, do we have families that have a generational kind of issue with this, or like do we have families that come every year and are winners that you have to look out for?
So if you take as examples, I suppose, because there's so many people, there's people whose grandparents were exhibiting at some of the original early days of the National Dairy Show that will be there exhibiting themselves. There's people who've exhibited almost every year since it started, which is fantastic to see, and also people that have done very well in recent years that will be back again with their cattle. But what I really like to see, and what's really encouraging from my point of view, is there'll be people there who have only started showing in the last year or two and who are very, very new to it. And they're going to get on just as well. You know, there tends to be like a professionalism in the show ring, but it's, you know, quite easy to pick up if you've been involved in IHFA for a couple of years, and young people get involved in showing. They get to know how to prepare their animal and get to know how to show it, and then they're ready to go to compete with the people who've been doing it for generations.
Yeah, and there is obviously a very attractive prize fund too.
I think there's over 13 grand in a prize fund this year.
Not to be sniffed at, really.
Not to be sniffed at. And, you know, big thanks has to go to AXA Insurance for their support of the show. Like, their involvement takes it to another level and really makes it that they can carry out a top-notch show.
Yeah, and the fact that it boasts one of the best prize funds in the country. I think every milking cow placed 6th or above receives a minimum of €200 in prize funds. That's something to aim for, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And everybody likes to get a prize. There's no doubt about it.
You don't want to go home, don't you? You don't want to be the only one going home without something in your pocket, really.
No, it really, really does help it out. And, you know, there's a lot of time and effort and cost involved in it. So it's nice to get some of that back. But yeah, it's really nice to go home with something in your pocket.
And this year we've got one of the top Holstein breeders in Denmark coming to judge.
So the judge is a very interesting guy this year, and it's unusual, I suppose, that we have a continental European judge. We don't tend to get them too often. So this guy, Niels Erik Haar, from Anderstrup Holsteins in Denmark.
He's very well known.
Very well known, really involved in the show circuit, but also involved in commercial breeding, breeds a lot of bulls for Danish and German AI stations, milks over 500 cows, and I think the last I saw, herd average of something like 15,000 litres.
That's something that you're going to say out there now. People are going to be saying, how's he getting that?
Oh, well, we'll have to ask him when he gets over here. But obviously, you know what I mean? Very different production system in Denmark. Tend to be a lot of indoor systems. They're not out grazing in January, you know what I mean? So very much a higher production system. But getting phenomenal results. So, you know, really interesting guy, and a guy who has a very broad view of the dairy industry, both from commercial dairy and pedigree breeding for commercial AI companies, but also an appreciation of the show ring and appreciation of a good looking cow. So it's very, very exciting to have.
So that's going to create quite a frisson of excitement, isn't it? You know, because he's going to be exactly looking for certain specifics.
Well, yeah, and the fact that he's from a little bit of a different background may mean he's looking for a slightly different cow type than what we've seen in other years, which may bring other people to the fore, which is very interesting to see how that dynamic plays out.
Yeah, so last year the title was claimed by Hallow Atwood Twizzle 1181 from the County Wexford herd of Hallow Holsteins, but it's really an open field, isn't it?
It very much so, and there's a lot of cows that haven't really been seen out this year before, or haven't been seen in the showing for a while. They'll have calved in again, and they look a little bit different than they have been before. So, you know, it's not like we have a bookie's favourite as, you know, the cow to beat. There's quite an open field, and it'll be really interesting to see how they turn out, how they place, and then how it all looks come the final at around 4:00 on Saturday.
Yeah. So we will obviously be live streaming some of this, and we're going to have full coverage on Agriland, and also you can catch it up on our app. But it's not just the show. There's a lot more going on around, isn't it?
Well, there's a very large trade show that goes alongside. So there's about 140 companies exhibiting in the trade show. So that'll cover every aspect of farm inputs, particularly for the dairy farmer. There's also a very interesting machinery demonstration. So a number of the machinery companies are demonstrating, particularly their UTVs or utility terrain vehicles, I guess they are, which would be an alternative to the quad, because there's a lot of rules and regulations coming in around quads and safety aspects. So I suppose these are kind of they're the ones with the gators, as they would be called, and they've got a cab and proper seats and stuff like that. So they would be seen as a safer alternative to the quad. So it'd be very interesting to see how they perform in the wild, shall we say, on demo. And there's children's entertainment. There's a magician. A few nice little things like that for the kids, and also I suppose younger kids particularly, they love to see the cattle as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. So
That's
they won't be bored for sure. So there's something for everybody. Yeah.
And so, Laurence, tell us what else will be some of the big attractions at the show.
Well, what's always a big attraction is the Innovation Award. So the Innovation Award has been going for a long number of years now, and it's for new products or services for dairy farmers that have just been launched in the past year. So while we don't know who's in pole position to win that this year, there's several new products that's very, very interesting. And last year's winner was a methane reducing additive, feed additive from Bovaer. So that just kind of gives you an indication of the type of innovation that comes to the fore there, and the importance of it as well, because stuff like that could be crucially important for the industry going forward.
So it's a real showcase for innovators and entrepreneurs.
New products, new companies, particularly in the area of technology. There's always something interesting coming to the fore in agriculture. And it's those kind of things that can be game changers, because you've seen things like methane additives will probably start to come to the fore now over the next couple of years. Previously, we've seen things like farm software, activity collars, activity monitors for health and for fertility and stuff like that. A number of years back would have been winners, and those things are now commonplace in Irish farms.
And it gives farmers a taste of what's coming, isn't it? It's a really nice sneak preview there.
Well, it's all very interesting. There's always, and some things are very, very simple little devices and innovations that can go on every farm, and some things are more kind of high level. But it's always interesting to see what's happening and see what different people are thinking about in relation to farming.
Now, we have to say, against the backdrop of the show, some dairy farmers have had a very difficult year. And obviously, the IHFA is responsible for the validity and upkeep of the herd book of Holstein Friesian cattle in the country. But also, you are very keenly focused on sustainability and farming in harmony with the environment. So that brings a lot of challenges today.
Well, no doubt. And I suppose I've been in this job for about a year, and previous to that, in the cattle breeding industry through the AI companies. And I suppose I've seen a lot of changes over the last 10 or 15 years in terms of the type of animal we're breeding for, the use of the EBI, sex semen, a lot of changes happening. But I think there's a lot more changes to come over the next couple of years. And I suppose the environmental concerns are probably driving that more than anything now at the moment. But we still need a profitable, efficient dairy industry, because it's still a business. So we're seeing some changes in terms of what the concerns that our members have and that other dairy farmers have. And I suppose I would see IHFA as very much part of the fabric of breed improvement in Ireland. And, there's a lot of things we can offer that address some of the challenges. So in relation to the environmental concerns, I mean, we need an efficient, productive cow that's going to make money, right? There are things that will make that animal a little bit more environmentally friendly. One of the big things that we've started to see at the moment is around, let's say, making cows last longer in herds, right? And it's something we've been doing for a number of years, but there's things that we can do to improve that as well. And if a cow lasts longer in a herd, it means that she doesn't have to be replaced, right? So it means a lower replacement rate means that a farmer can carry less replacement stock, more productive stock. And that's very good in terms of nitrates regulations and stuff like that. You know what I mean? You can kind of manage your stocking rate a little bit more efficiently. And it's I suppose the change in breeding from protein and fertility, as it has been for the last number of years, to other things like efficiency and longevity now, And we've seen some early research that's kind of pointing to some of the important things that drive that longevity, particularly as cows get older, they different things become limiting factors. So when a cow is younger, the most important thing is that they get in calf, right? As they get older, they get more problems around lameness and mastitis and things like that. So there's other limiting factors in relation to longevity and the physical makeup of the cow. Has she got good quality udder? Has she got good quality legs and feet? Those type of things are starting to show as being things that become more important as an animal gets older. And those are some of the things we have to start expanding on, and I suppose starting to breed for a little bit more. And I think there's challenges there, but there's opportunities there.
Yeah. And on derogation, because obviously we've been covering that a lot in Agriland over the last couple of weeks, is that a key issue for your members?
So absolutely, and a lot of our members, our membership tends to be very broad and diverse, and reflective of kind of a lot of average farms. But we would have a number of high production systems and winter milk systems and stuff like that, and they tend to be maybe a little bit under pressure in regards to derogations. So for sure, it's going to have an effect. So one thing we did this year to kind of showcase our herds and what they were doing is we ran what we call the Focus Farms events, and a number of them were featured in Agriland, and we had an open farm in Laois a couple of weeks ago, and it showed basically 6 different farmers running 6 different farm systems, right? And they range from, let's say, quite extensive grazing, pure Friesian system to and more intensive liquid milk type systems or winter milk type systems. And all of them systems have challenges in regards to irrigation and managing nitrates. But there are things that each of them are doing that give them hope as regards of kind of optimizing things. Never going to be easy, but if the herds that can show kind of a good productive animal, an efficient animal, an animal that's lasting a long time with a low replacement rate, really good cow fertility, those type of herds seem to be pretty well equipped to deal with that challenge, because it's not ideal, but they're going to have to deal with it. So so you can see those traits coming through in some of our herds, and the herds that are better able to deal with it are kind of the more efficient, better cows. Like if you think about the way I like to think about it in terms of the derogation, and that is, instead of having a farm and you try to fit as many cows on your farm and maximize your production as kind of might have been some of the thought process previously, you now have a farm that has a certain number of spaces for cows, if you like. So let's say you have spaces for 100 cows. Okay, you better make sure that those 100 cows are as good as possible. The best performing, most efficient cows. And if you have 100 really high performing cows, really profitable cows, you'll do pretty okay. If you have 50 good cows and 50 not so good cows, then you're not optimizing your farm, and those 50 not so good cows could be replaced by 50 better cows, and you would have a more profitable farm.
And have IHFA members identified what they see as the biggest challenges to their family farms?
Oh, look, there's no doubt at the moment, now that, let's say, we're in a low point as regards milk price, or at least I hope a low point. And we're also starting to, I suppose, the reality of expansion being finished, and we're kind of, into an era of
consolidation, maybe.
Yes, that's probably a good way of putting it. People are kind of changing their mentality in that they have what they have, and they need to manage what they have as best as possible, and be as efficient as possible within the farm.
But are they optimistic about the future?
Well, I think in general, yes. Concerned, but optimistic. I think, I don't hear too many people talking about exiting dairy. You know what I mean? I think there is an understanding there that dairying is still a good, profitable enterprise and a good lifestyle. And most of our members are really enthusiastic about dairying. You know what I mean? They're the type of people who love their cows and love what they do.
But they will have had it handed down. It is a family business, isn't it? It's one generation to the next.
Well, and there's certainly a lot of that, and nobody wants to end a number of generations of dairy farming on an enterprise and those type of things. But it has to make sense. And I think more and more these days, people are focused that it is a business and it has to make money and it has to, feed a family and
support a family. Yeah. And that has to be acknowledged.
Yeah. And if it's not doing that, I don't think people are so sentimental that they're going to stick doing something that doesn't make any sense. So I think people do appreciate that milk price isn't going to be where it is now forever. And hopefully we're starting to see some kind of light at the end of that tunnel, and people do see a future in dairy farming, but that's assuming environmental regulations don't become much more restrictive than they are at the moment too. So there is concerns for the future, and people are very focused on trying to fight those things politically and otherwise to make sure there is a future for it, because we still have the best country in the world for producing dairy product. We have to make sure we can do it efficiently and with profitable family farms. So we have to protect what we have too.
Yeah, and being part of the association like the IHFA provides support, doesn't it, to your members?
So we're part of our, let's say, remit is breed improvement, but another part of it is kind of the whole kind of social side of farming. We have about 3,500 members. We have 15 different regional clubs. Those clubs run a lot of local events, open days, local shows, farm walks, herds competitions where people compete for prizes to see who's got the best herd, or lots of different types of categories. So there's a lot of social aspects to it as well, which is very nice too.
And it's important, isn't it? Because we know that sometimes there is that feeling of isolation, and as you say, it has been difficult for some family farms this year. So that's a really important support network.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely, and you can go meet other people, and everyone's in the same boat, and shared concerns and stuff like that. But and everyone understands where each other is coming from. So it's a great little social network from that point of view. And I think most farmers, particularly the ones that are full time and committed, they tend to live farming. So they're more likely to want to go to a farm walk in the evening and spend some time with other farmers than they are to go to the to go to a concert or something like that.
Yeah,
sometimes
and this obviously next week now. Obviously, this week, whenever we see the National Dairy Show kick off on Friday, that's going to bring them together to be able to discuss all those issues.
It is. There'll be thousands of dairy farmers gathered in Mill Street, and there'll be loads of chat around the place. The volume levels in the halls, particularly around the show ring, will be very, very high with chat and social interaction, and people will be seeing people that haven't met since last year at Mill Street and catching up.
So we can't ask you for any insider tips now on who you might see as emerging as the champion, but we will say thank you very much for joining us on the AgriFocus podcast. Laurence Feeney, the Chief Executive of the IHFA, and we will be talking to you, Laurence, throughout the show. And please remember, there'll be full coverage of the AXA National Dairy Show on agriland.ie, and you can also keep up to date on the Agriland app at any time. Thanks again for your time.